I never thought I would last this long inside the red bunker, when the world outside descended into chaos. When sirens howled and the sky was painted with fire, I sealed the heavy steel door shut and began the countdown. Day 1 of survival. I told myself it would be a month, maybe 2, until the war above quieted down. But months turned to years. And now the marks I carved into the wall number 1,000. 1,000 days underground, cut off from the sun, from voices, from the life I once knew. The bunker was originally designed as a shelter, painted in harsh crimson to stand out against the dull ruins. But over time, that red became more than just a color. It was a reminder of danger, of conflict, of blood. Every surface reflected that hue back at me, as though the walls themselves were whispering about the war one tried to escape. In the beginning, I survived on rations, dried beans, rice, and canned meat stacked neatly on dusty shelves. I had water purified by an old filtration system, though I often worried it would one day fail. Each morning, I kept myself disciplined. I woke up, did exercises in the narrow space, wrote in my journal, and checked my supplies. Routine was my shield against despair. But after 200 days, the silence began to press on me like a second skin. No bird song, no footsteps, no human laughter, only the low hum of machinery. I started talking to myself, reading aloud just to hear a voice. I made friends with shadows, with the scratches in the wall, even with the pipes that clanged randomly in the night. My mind played tricks. Sometimes I thought I heard distant explosions, sometimes whispers seeping through the metal walls. By day 500, I almost forgot what the sky looked like. Memories of blue stretched thin, as though they belonged to another life. I would close my eyes and imagine clouds drifting lazily, wind brushing against my skin, rain tapping on my window. These images were my escape, my rebellion against the bunker's red prison. Still, I refused to give up. I built a calendar with scraps of paper. I taught myself patience by growing a tiny plant in a pot from the few seeds I had hidden away. The green sprout became my hope, a fragile proof that life could still bloom even in confinement. Watching it grow was like watching my own determination survive. By day 700, I felt like a ghost haunting the bunker. My beard grew long, my hair unruly. The person I once was, the one who laughed with friends, who walked freely in the open air, seemed like a stranger. But resilience grew inside me. The bunker did not break me. I told myself that if I could survive this, I could survive anything. Now, on day 1,000, I stand before the door again. My hand rests on the rusty wheel lock, trembling. I do not know what waits outside. Perhaps the war still rages. Perhaps nothing remains but ashes. Or maybe, just maybe, peace has returned and the world is ready to breathe again. For 1,000 days, the red bunker was my cage and my shield. It held me captive, but it also kept me alive. And now I face the choice: stay within its walls forever, or step into the unknown beyond. My heart pounds as I twist the lock. The door groaned as I pushed it open, the hinges stiff from rust and neglect. A blinding light pierced the bunker's shadows, forcing me to shield my eyes. For a moment, I thought it was fire, the last flare of destruction, but slowly my vision adjusted. It wasn't flames, it was sunlight, real golden sunlight spilling across the cracked earth outside. I staggered forward, the air thick with dust and silence. The world I had once known was gone, transformed into a graveyard of stone and metal. Buildings were nothing more than hollow shells, their windows shattered, their walls blackened. The streets were littered with debris, tangled wires, and the carcasses of machines left to rust. The war had ended, but peace hadn't yet taken its place. Instead, there was emptiness, a quiet so profound it felt heavier than gunfire. For the first time in 1,000 days, I breathed fresh air. It was bitter, carrying the scent of ash and iron, but it was alive. It touched my lungs with a sharpness the stale air of the bunker never could. I fell to my knees and pressed my palms against the dirt, feeling the texture of the earth like it was a miracle. Tears blurred my vision. I had survived, but what kind of world had I survived into? I wandered the ruins cautiously. My legs trembled, weak from confinement, but each step was a promise. The city I remembered was gone, replaced by silence and ruin, yet nature had begun to reclaim it. Green weeds pushed through cracks in the pavement. Vines coiled around broken lampposts. Birds fluttered overhead, their cries startling me with their sheer normalcy. After 1,000 days underground, the sound of life was almost too much to bear, but there were signs of others too. Footprints in the dust. A broken cart filled with scavenged supplies. Smoke rising faintly from the horizon. Humanity was not entirely gone. My heart raced at the thought after so long in isolation. The possibility of seeing another human being was both thrilling and terrifying. Would they welcome me or see me as a stranger, an intruder in this shattered land? I followed the trail of smoke until the sun began to sink, painting the sky in colors I had almost forgotten: orange, purple, deep indigo. The beauty was overwhelming, but it also reminded me how much I had lost. Night came quickly, and with it the chill of uncertainty. I found shelter in the shell of an old library. The books were charred, the shelves splintered, but I picked up a half-burned volume anyway, clutching it as if it could connect me to the past. That night, sleep came uneasily. Every creak of the ruined building sounded like danger. Every gust of wind made me wonder if someone or something was approaching. For so long, the bunker had kept me safe, its red walls enclosing me in predictable silence. Now, the open world was vast and unpredictable. Freedom was as frightening as it was beautiful. On the second day outside, I finally encountered another survivor. A woman, thin and ragged, carrying a spear fashioned from scrap metal. When she saw me, her eyes widened with suspicion, but she did not attack. Instead, we circled one another warily, like animals testing boundaries. I raised my hands, showing I had no weapon. My voice cracked as I spoke. It had been so long since I had spoken to anyone but myself. I was in a bunker, I explained hoarsely. 1,000 days. I'm alive. She studied me for a long time before finally lowering her weapon. Her name was Mira, and she too had endured the war's end. She told me of small groups of survivors scattered across the ruins, building makeshift camps, trading scraps of food, and searching for clean water. It wasn't society not yet, but it was something. The war had taken nearly everything, but it had not taken the will to endure. With Mira, I walked for days, meeting others like us. Some were cautious, some hostile, some kind. They were scarred, broken in ways that couldn't always be seen, but they carried a flicker of resilience. Together, we began to speak of rebuilding. It would not be easy. The world was fractured, resources scarce, and trust fragile. But compared to the silence of the bunker, even the smallest spark of community felt like hope. Still, the bunker haunted me. At night, when the wind howled through the ruins, I dreamed of the red walls pressing in, of the 1,000 marks I carved into stone, counting down days of loneliness. That bunker had been my prison, but also my salvation. Without it, I would not have lived to see the sky again. Now, beyond its walls, I faced the true test. Not just to survive, but to live. On the 1,000th night since my exile began, I sat by a fire with Mira and others, listening to their voices as they shared stories. The flames lit their faces, worn yet alive. I thought of the bunker door behind me, now sealed forever, and realized something. Survival had kept me alive inside those red walls, but only connection could give me a future beyond them. And so I stopped counting the days. The war was over. My time in the red bunker was a scar I would carry, but also a lesson. Even in the deepest confinement, hope can endure. And when you finally step out of the shadows, that hope becomes the seed of something greater, the chance to rebuild, to heal, to start again.